Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear fruit and become my disciples." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Last weekend, I had a funeral in the church, and when the time came for the altar server to bring the incense over, like always, I grabbed a hold of the chain, and I immediately let out an interior scream, because somehow the chain had been resting on the hot charcoal inside, and it had heated up like a hot stove or a hot grill, and fortunately I didn't scream out loud, but I did scream inside and dropped it just as quick as I could. It was a reflex, really, like touching a hot stove. I mean, no big deal. I had a little bit of a chain brand mark on my finger, and I just grabbed a hold of the chain further up to do the incensing. But when it came time for the altar server to wash my hands, I just said, "Could you pour a little bit of more cold water on, please?" Jesus today gives us a very challenging gospel. When I was reading the gospel this week, I let out that same interior scream, because Jesus says some things like, if you do not remain in me, you're going to be gathered up like a branch and burned. And I said, well, I don't want to be burned. I know what that feels like. It's awful. But the rest of the gospel is challenging as well. He says, even if we do remain on him like branches on a vine, we have to be pruned. And honestly, pruning doesn't sound any better than burning. Pruning sounds like a very painful experience as well. Someone who grows rose bushes was telling me this week that pruning can be very painful in the two senses. One, it can be painful for the person doing the pruning because there's all these thorns among the roses that will cut you. But also, it's painful for the plant. You know, it's amazing how much you have to prune back a rose bush in order to make it really grow. You have to cut it back so far it just looks like a stump. And you get rid of all those roses, all those branches that have been growing all year long. It can be painful to even look at it. And yet that's what you have to do in order to get these beautiful roses to grow. Sometimes pruning can be an act of love. When we cut out things from our life that we really don't need, that we're really unhealthy, it can be painful, and yet it can be the most important thing we do because we love ourselves and we love other people and we love God. But still, I found the gospel this week very challenging. I didn't really like it until I did read one line that Jesus said today that gave me some comfort. And it's where Jesus says, "But you have already been pruned." And I liked that. I said, oh, good, because Jesus is reminding us that, yes, there may be a lot of pruning in our lives ahead, but we've already gone through a lot of pruning as well. A lot of the pruning has taken place in the past. And when you go through a very difficult, very challenging experience, a very painful experience, but you come out the other side, you don't lose that. You don't lose the lessons that you learned, the growth that you experienced, the strength that you found within yourself. It doesn't just disappear. It's there. And you don't have to go through that painful experience in quite the same way ever again. There might be other painful experiences to go through in life, but now we're stronger because of what we have gone through to be able to face those things. And so I think Jesus is giving us real comfort and hope here by saying, you are already pruned. Maybe we can ask ourselves today, where have we already been pruned in life? Where have we gone through a really difficult, really challenging, maybe painful experience, but come out stronger on the other side? We look back at it now and we say, boy, that was a painful time. I do not necessarily want to go through that again. But in a certain way, I almost look back at it with envy, because in those times, boy, I was trusting in God. I started trusting in his strength rather than my own, and I really grew. And maybe we can ask too, what is some area of our life where we still need to be pruned? What needs to be taken out of our life, even if it's difficult, in order so we can become those missionary disciples that Jesus is calling us to be? I think these last few years have been a difficult time of pruning for many of us and for our parish. We went through the last few, a time of pandemic, a time of transition, a time of war, a time of where some things in life that seem so solid have become a little bit more rocky. And it's a challenging time. But when we come out of that on the other side, we begin to see the growth. And if you're looking for it, you begin to see the green shoots that are everywhere. As long as we remain united to the vine, united to Jesus, and draw our strength from him, draw our strength from prayer, from the sacraments, from a life of service, we'll see great growth, maybe growth that really surprises us. And I look at all the ways that our parish here at St. Mary's has been coming together this past year. Everything from the way the hospitality committee has been doing such great work, with soup and stations and our monthly coffee hours and our celebration cakes. And we had our history night last week, and there's now a great feast provided at all these occasions. It's wonderful. It brings community together. I think of the way that our young people have been growing through Team Jesus and through Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. We blessed our atrium downstairs a few weeks ago, that place where our preschoolers go and learn about the Mass with Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. For adults, we've had many opportunities, from the Chosen series to Catholic discussions, to so many adults coming into our faith at the Easter Vigil this year. Beautiful things happening. Or I think of the ways that we really respond when people are in need, when there's some service that needs to be done, in the way that we supported the community food pantry, the mission trip to the Dominican Republic, a mission trip to Peru, all these different ways that we continue to grow. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to do in the future. There's going to be more pruning, more growing that's needed. It never ends. I mean, this summer, I would really like to get some more altar servers here at St. Mary's. Caitlin's going to be going to college soon. We need some more altar servers. Maybe some of the kids who are making their first communion next week would like to learn how to be an altar server. And there's always work to be done on our properties. One of our scouts is going to be doing the iron railings outside, and probably going to need some help. We're going to need some help with landscaping. There's always work to be done. But maybe we could just take a moment to say, but we've already been pruned, and give thanks to God for the growth we've already seen in our lives and in our parish, and let out that interior cheer when we see what God is doing in our midst. Another way that our parish has been really doing well is with our finances. Thanks to your generosity, you've been very generous in giving to our parish, helping us meet our weekly expenses every week, but also in the way that you've responded to the New Hampshire Catholic appeal these last couple years. It's been really great to see how successful the appeal has been throughout our diocese, but even here in our parish, we exceeded our goal last year. We got a rebate back that really helped us do some of the work that we need to do around here. But more importantly, it really helped fund some of the vital ministries of our diocese, like the education and formation of seminarians and the New Hampshire Catholic Charities, retired priests, Catholic schools, and so many other needs. And so to say a little bit more about the appeal this year, I'd like to invite Patrick Ford to come up, who's joining us from New Hampshire Catholic Charities.